What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Dee Hankins Show, where we talk about life, help you with your curveballs, and celebrate your home runs. We have a special edition of the show tonight called Foster the Future with Lucy Liz Baker. Now, before we get into our introductions on Lucy, I want to tell you what this show is all about. May is Foster Care Awareness Month. Our job, my goal is to spread awareness about foster youth, former, current, those who work with foster youth, so on and so forth, anything involved around foster care. I want to highlight people who are doing it big, doing it major, that have come from foster care, that have shown some tremendous resilience in their lives and are displaying it every single day. That's the goal of this show. That's the point of this show. And everyone on this show has been exceptional. And this young lady is no different. Lucy Liz Baker is a great friend of mine. I really don't do accolades and accomplishments too much. But on this show, for these reasons, I want to show you how big people are doing it. I got to do all the accolades. Now, usually I go off, but Lucy, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. What have you accomplished? Who is Lucy Liz Baker? I want to know.
I've accomplished so much. I come from literally being born behind jail bars and was bound by patterns of addiction and abuse and neglect. And I was immediately placed in the foster care system. And so from that moment, from the jump, I was already struggling immensely and spent a lot of time in the foster care system. When I wasn't in the foster care system, I was homeless, living in domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, cars, park benches, abandoned homes, you name it. But I was resilient enough to make it through and graduate with my bachelor's degree. And I know you know the statistics, they're always changing. Only like 55% of us foster youth who have lived experience in the system make it to high school graduation. And about 2 to 3% graduate college. So we're part of that top percentage there. We made it.
We made it.
I'm certified with National Academy of Sports Medicine and Loma Linda University community health worker. I was a peer support associate at San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, but I now am pursuing full-time public speaking to pour into our youth and the generations to come, to raise up leaders and really give them the sense of hope that I wish I had. And after hearing speakers like you, speakers like all of the speakers that we're surrounded by in community, hearing from them and seeing that they faced these things and they made it, I learned that there's power in using your voice, and using your voice changes your circumstances. And it
absolutely
changes the trajectory of your future. So I want to be that person that I needed. So thank you for all the work that you've been doing and for welcoming me onto this platform. I'm so excited. Such an honor.
No, I've been waiting. You need to be on here. So Lucy is very humble, so soft and sweet and kind. What she really means with all that is she went from being born in prison, addiction, abuse, to a college graduate, a mentor, a speaker, an author of a children's book, right? A writer, a poet, a vlogger, a blogger, you name it. She's doing it. She's making it happen. And that's what I love about this show. And I love about my last few guests is, how? You know what I'm saying? How? And we're going to dive into that right now, Lucy, because like people need to know you. Like people need to know Lucy Liz Baker. The first time I met Lucy, it was at a conference. And I think I had keynoted or maybe emceed or something. I'm not quite sure, but I met Lucy, and Lucy was very like very shy, very kind of like like it faded into the background a little bit. But something about her spirit, something about her, just something about her really drew me to ask questions. And she approached me and said, I think I want to do something like this. And I asked a few questions, to kind of get to know her. And I found out she was a poet and she loved poetry and things like that. But there was this look in your eye, Lucy, that I'll never forget. And it was one of those, I'm locked in. I don't know if something that I said inspired you, but something happened that day where you were looking at a new chapter in your life. And then I want to say a year or 2 years later, boom, here you are. You're knocking down books, you're gracing stages, you're doing all this stuff, and you're thriving. That's the word I want to use. You're thriving. And so I have a question to ask you. Luce, your bio, which if you haven't read her bio, it's in my post on this show. Your bio mentions you overcame significant challenges, including, sexual abuse and being born in prison. Can you share a specific instance where you drew strength from your experiences, not only to heal, but also to thrive, right? And then how did this experience shape your mission to support other foster youth?
Yeah. So I think the key pivotal point when I recognized that my voice had power was when I was placed into foster care for the second time. I was actually in the middle of a suicide attempt as a 10-year-old girl. 10-year-olds aren't supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be playing on playgrounds, scraping their knees up. But my scraped knees were not from the playground. They were rice being poured on the floor, me getting on my knees, and holding a watermelon above my head for about 10 minutes. And not only was it just that abuse, but it was sexual. My mom was in and out of prison my entire life. And so when she went into prison, in and out, I took on that mother role. And all those screams that I'd heard on the other side of the wall as a young kid, asking my mom asking me to help her, that became me asking my little brother to help me. And without getting too deep, I know I kind of already did, but without getting too deep into it, once the sexual abuse started happening, I started to feel like my body didn't belong to me, and less of myself. Like I just had to conform to whatever my environment was and try to blend in to the environment that I was in, try to basically compromise my self-expression, the way that I deeply felt. And so at 10 years old, I was in the middle of a suicide attempt because my mom was living with some gang members at the time, and my dad was living with his wife, his ex-wife, but wife at the time. And he came to my mom's house as the gang members were there, barged in. My mom wasn't home because she was selling drugs at the time. And he grabbed me and my little brother and started breaking stuff, shattering stuff, dragged us outside, and somebody called the police. And when the police pulled up, my mom happened to pull up at the same time. And when my mom pulled up, my dad had a screwdriver in his back pocket, pulled it out, and was going to stab my mom, but ended up slashing all 4 tires. Police saw this and said, okay, clearly something's going on. So they gave me this authority as a 10-year-old girl to basically choose, with my mom on one side, my dad on another side, who I wanted to go home with. My mom's over here crying, broken, scared half to death because of what just happened. My dad's over here holding up toys because he had money. He owned businesses. He deemed authority. He always said, I put that person in check. Like, I'm going to put that person in check. So my little brother, of course, being 5 years old, went to the toys. I went to my mom. They left. As I was with my mom, the cops they searched the house. This was a frequent thing. I mean, raids were common for me. I'd have friends over, and my friends would be traumatized, but I'd just be like, guys, they're cool. Like, these cops are cool. What's going on? Why are you afraid? And some of them would say, I can never go to your house again. My parents won't let me. I understand that. But at this time, the cops told me that it wasn't safe to be there. So my mom, for some reason, they left. And somehow my mom was able to get me to hide with my sister. And in that moment, as I was on my way to hide with my sister, I started spiraling. I started ripping my hair out, screaming, hitting the dashboard, shaking uncontrollably, telling my sister I wanted to jump out of the car on the freeway. And my sister was 21 at the time. So she pulls over to this park, and I just throw myself out, and I had a tantrum. I had a traumatic episode, I guess you'd say. Police came because my sister didn't know what to do, and they said, honey, you're gonna have to go to an emergency CPS meeting. Had no idea what this was, but I was brought into this room.
Are you still 10 at this point?
Yes.
Wow.
This is all within the span of a day.
Wow.
This is right in a moment. Like, snap of fingers. And I was in this room where different people with different badges started coming up to me, investigating, asking questions. How hard did your dad hit you? What did the marks look like? Did teachers question you? All these different questions. But they noticed that there was something deeper going on because I froze. I put my phone on and I just completely dissociated. That was my coping mechanism, was dissociating from my reality. Like, I'm not real, you're not real, we're good, I don't exist, this moment, it's not happening. That I coped. And so as I was sitting in this room with the four walls, my families are again there, separated in the same way, but I see my sister and she's just glaring at me, my dad's daughter. I see my other sisters on my mom's side, and they're just crying so much. And I didn't open up about anything, but I did share about more of the graphic things of the abuse. Then they said, okay, obviously it's not safe for you to go home with your mom, not safe for you to go home with your dad. Foster care it is. And as I spent my time in the foster care system, I understood the power of my voice because it got me out of living every single day in terror and fear of if my dad was going to come home and touch me in a way that I didn't want him to, or abuse my family members. And it also got me out of walking in my home that was crowded with gang members, selling drugs, making false credit cards. Like, it was cool because they were my babysitters. They taught me how to draw some cool stuff. I learned how to do art. Like, I think it was hard to see some people at times just sitting in a room full of stale smoke and seeing some people foaming out the mouth sometimes in the bathroom. And so it got me out of that. Just me simply saying, hey, this is what's going on. I didn't exactly say it right then and there, but that was my pivotal moment. And when I'd finally come forward weeks later about the sexual abuse with my dad, I not only found out that it happened to me, but it happened to my sisters, my cousins, my little brother, my stepsister, my mom. So I saw this ripple effect, and I recognized this was, again, at 10 years old, that there's power in her voice. That's when I first recognized, okay, this is going to be a gift that's used to break cycles in generations to come and generations beyond my age, because clearly something happened here.
Yeah.
So that was my journey of discovering why there's power in my voice, why there's power in speaking up, why there's power in breaking the cycle.
You mentioned, being empowered to find your voice. Can you elaborate on like what that meant for you, and how do you help other young people discover and use their voices to advocate for themselves and for their future? So you mentioned that you found it. What did it mean to you when you started to use it and you started to recognize change happening? Like, when did it really become a tool for you?
It became a tool for me when, actually on several occasions, not just then, but when I had to testify in court at 13 years old against my dad, who was being tried, facing prison for life. I recognized there was power in it when at 16 years old, Miss Brenda Dowdy, she found me because I had again voiced that, and this wasn't to Miss Brenda, it went down the line of homeless liaison, social worker, then to Miss Brenda. I voiced that one day at school, I had another episode, I guess. I don't think that's a very nice word, actually. I had a reaction that was expressed in anger, deep anger, but it was actually sadness, because I was held at gunpoint by police officers that were raiding my house. And it wasn't just one officer, but it was 6. I was okay with one sometimes. It was scary, but I had gotten used to it, I guess. But once it was 6, the next day when I went to school, I was a wreck. And there was a math teacher I had. Her name is Miss Wilson. She's in part of my children's book. She actually still connected to me this day and checks in on me. So I'm able to see that it really starts with our educators. If it doesn't start at home, our home can be school. Because I was living in this abandoned home and the house got raided and these cops held me at gunpoint, I was frozen. But this teacher I ate lunch in her classroom often, but this particular day I was shaking uncontrollably, and she noticed it. And she touched me and lovingly just asked me if there was something she can do for me. And when she did that, I snatched my hand back and I said, "You don't love me? Why are you asking me all these questions?" And I threw stuff around. I threw all these papers. I'm smiling saying this because that's when freedom actually happened for me. That's when I actually experienced true freedom, because she saw me beyond what I was doing in my classroom. She saw my pain. And she loved me. Like, she loved me in a way that people at home never had loved me before. And I guess that was alarming to me because it wasn't familiar and scared. So from there, she sent me to the office and I talked to Miss Lena Sulyafu, amazing woman, very gentle voice, very safe person to me. I just love how soft-spoken she is. And I've always told her that, like, as a social worker, it's really important on like the way that social workers even carry their tone of voice. And that's what Lena was for me. And so she made space for me to open up and offered me motel vouchers because this abandoned home that I was living in wasn't where I was sleeping every night. It was sometimes motel rooms or my car or homes that were infested with cockroaches. And then she asked me my shoe size. And I was like, don't know my shoe size. I haven't got new shoes since probably 6th grade. Had whole toes and everything. And so I know I'm kind of rambling, so you can tell me to.
No. I think it's important for you to really jog down memory lane, because everyone is unique and everyone's story is unique, but your story is not uncommon, right? There's young ladies and young men, both, that have experienced somewhat of what you experience, and they didn't make it, which is why I'm highlighting foster youth that did make it, because the stories are endless of those that did complete their suicide attempt, right? That did not bounce back from the abuse, that are still homeless till today, that succumbed to their drug addiction, that haven't left the streets, that have then, this has become their nature, and now they have taken the place of the gangbanger, selling drugs, making fake cards, and doing all this stuff. And so it's important for people to hear that. And I know it's raw, and I know it's it's heavy, but it's real. It happened to you. This is not something that that you're just like, oh well, I heard about. No. The pain and the emotions are all real for you, and these little pieces in your story that have created you to be Lucy Liz Baker, now the inspirational speaker, the author, all of those pieces and all of those people help to create this puzzle of yours that's still being built, right? That's still being put together. But these rants and these rambles are just your body's way of saying, hey, we got to touch on this more. We got to talk about this more. And for me, sitting back, and what I do, as I talk to students and teachers and all that stuff, it's the little things for me that I try to get across to educators and adults. It's the little things. A teacher willing to have you yell at them, but knowing that that's not you. That's something in you, or something happening to you that is just coming out verbally, right? Something as simple as asking someone their shoe size. That's important for people to know, for adults to know. Oftentimes it's just like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with her? Oh, here comes a troublemaker. Oh, it's this and that. I talked to Jai the other day, and it's just like, foster youth has this stigma that they're just problem children. And what you have just told us in the beginning of the show is that everything that you are or were at 10, 16, 13 was due to someone literally taking a piece of you away, right? So you have never had a whole childhood. You've never had a whole teenagehood. Your adulthood, you're starting to put these pieces back together. You're starting to get these pieces together, but we're still not whole now, right? And so it's important to share those little things, because little things matter. And speaking of little things, in your bio, you talk about your encounter with, I think it was Bikers Against Child Abuse. That sounds like that was like a turning point for you. Can you talk about the impact of mentorship and how that has affected your journey?
Absolutely. So Bikers Against Child Abuse connected with me as I was fresh out of the foster care system. It was a resource that was given to my family through crime survivors, which is also connected to a domestic violence shelter. They became safe people for me because they weren't just bikers that showed up and they were all cool and tried to deem authority in a room. No, they actually went to the park with me to feed bread to the birds or to the ducks, and they took me on motorcycle rides and would have this teddy bear and hug it so tight and tell me if I was ever scared. They'd pass it around in a circle. If I was ever scared and they weren't around, just to hug that teddy bear, and they were there. And they actually made it a point to show up to court when I was facing jury trials. My dad was facing jury trials, not me. With they were right against, like, right straight back in the room. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
They came with me to court with my dad, facing jury trials, and I was up on the testify stand. My dad was near the jury section, and they were straight ahead in my view. And I asked for this water pitcher to cover where my dad was, but they were my safe, direct connection look to, so that everything I said, I was just talking to them. That made a huge impact for me because my dad was a very scary person to me. Although I had those people in the room and this water can covering his face, I could still feel his energy just being directed towards me, and just his glare at me. And even just some of the comments that his attorney had made to me was a lot for a 13-year-old girl. So they really made it a point to not only show up at court, but take me out to ice cream, take me to feed the ducks, take me to ride bikes, do those normal kid activities that kids do. And I feel like I missed out on a lot of that. If it wasn't for them, I don't know if I would have had the chance to feel safe enough to play on a playground with other kids at a park.
And that's deep. That's really deep, man. So they definitely have the qualities of being a great mentor. Speaking of playing on a playground, let's talk about how you went from healing to helping, right? Your book, Lucy's Teddy Bear, tackles a tough subject. What inspired you to write a children's book on? So you didn't have much of a childhood. Actually, a lot of your trauma comes from your childhood. That's where your pain originates from. That's where, I think the apex of the storm is in your childhood life, and that's kind of like the domino that fell over and knocked down all these other traumatic experiences that you had to go through. Why a children's book?
Well, the children's book, when it comes out, you'll see that it transforms from being black and white to color. The teddy bear, it represents kindness and the power of kindness and hope. And sometimes people can carry that hope that we need. It doesn't always have to be just like an object. But for me, it started with an object that was a teddy bear. And in the beginning of the book, it goes from black and white. And I feel like my childhood, I saw things in black and white. It was just dark and heavy. And I don't have very many happy memories. So in order to redeem that, I want to be able to pour into the next generation and show them the power of kindness and also the power of hope. Because sometimes we don't know what hope looks like until we see it in someone else. Until someone else make it to something that we might dream of or even just wish we could experience. And so that's where this idea of having a children's book started. And it's just crazy how it all kind of just pieced together, because I thought I was going to be writing a memoir first, because I love writing. I have a blog, you know this.
Yeah.
I was going to be writing a memoir first, but obviously God had other plans, and the resources all came together and said, here's an opportunity. Take it and run with it. So that's what I did, and it should be out any day now, but it is out on pre-sale. So
okay, Lucy's Teddy Bear out on pre-sale. Y'all heard it, man. Where can we find this?
There's a link in my bio. If you follow that link at the end of the page, you scroll down, there's a copy of it there that you can purchase for the lowest price yet.
I love it. I love it. Luce, you told me a story in Sacramento that really spoke to me because it was very powerful. In foster care, there is this war against religion, right? A lot of people lose their faith in foster care. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second because you're big on faith. You know, you found God and you found the love of Christ in probably one of the worst ways, and you have held on to him ever since. And because of that, you have learned forgiveness. You have found your voice. You want to help. You want to serve. So my question to you is this, because, you know, a lot of foster youth that I deal with that have gone through similar things that you have dealt with, sexual abuse and addiction and, you know, parents being the result of that, always ask, what kind of God would allow this stuff to happen? I feel like you were at a place like that, but something changed for you to where it's the opposite for you now, right? Where it's just like you put all of your faith in him, like you're guided by him. How do you get to that point? What do you tell people who are just like, you know, there can't be a God that allows this stuff to happen? And I want your point of view before I give mine.
Yeah. So I always thought of God as this just higher authority that wants me to be something that I'm not, and that I have to live up to these expectations. And honestly, a lot of the way that I associated my idea of God was what I thought of as my dad, because they call him God the Father, the Heavenly Father. And so everything I associated with my earthly father was what hindered me from experiencing the love of the Heavenly Father. And for me, I didn't really turn to religion because every example that I had of Jesus let me down. I mean, my mom, she was in the middle of a fast when I got out of foster care, and from there she relapsed. And to this day, she still struggles. And I thought that was because God wasn't real. I thought that was because it was just some made up thing. And I don't know. There was just this idea that I had, and I was like, no, that's fine. It's not for me. It works for her. It works for other people. Not for me. And so I had an actual encounter after trying to fill myself with all these different things, different relationships with guys and girls and witchcraft, new age occult, all these different things, drugs, alcohol, you name it. And I only found myself emptier. And I finally realized that we are all born with a God-sized void in our heart. And it wasn't until I actually tried to commit suicide for the second time in my life that I actually heard his voice and acknowledged that he's real, not just a God from a book that we have to do this and follow this because this is no, he's actually a God that wants us to experience him in a way that's deeply relational. And sometimes he doesn't even want us to read. He just wants us to invite him in to our experiences, acknowledge that he's here, acknowledge that we're not alone, acknowledge that we're loved, and also acknowledge that he made us. Because at the end of the day, people can not want me, mistreat me, and violate me, but at the end of the day, there's still a God who cares and loves me. And even if there's no place for me here, there's a place for me in the kingdom of heaven.
Mm.
So that being said, I read this verse, I think it's like John 1, first chapter of John 2, and it was just speaking about how we're all made not by the will of man, but by the will of God.
Mm.
So I always question, like, okay, God, why did you have me born in jail? Like, come on now. But then I recognize, okay, Jesus was born in a manger. It's fine. But when I read that verse, it actually really spoke to me, because I'd always questioned why I was here if I was an accident.
Mm.
That was all I'd ever heard. I was an accident. I don't have room for you. You're not mine. You don't belong to me. I'm not even on your birth certificate. That was what repeatedly played in my mind. And it wasn't until I actually encountered God relationally, but also had a moment where, you know, in the movies, when someone's reading in the movies and all of a sudden the words just get bigger and everything else gets blurry. Yeah, that happened in real life, not just a movie, but in real life. And that's how God spoke to me. And not only did I hear it with my ears, I received it in my mind, and I felt it in my heart. So I was like, okay, I think I can do this, but I don't want to try too hard. Because if you're real, I want to encounter you. I want to experience a real God, not just a God that goes by this book, which I honor the book. I respect it. It's everything. It's life. But that was my first experience with the word, the Bible.
And so, you know, you tried alcohol, that didn't work. You tried drugs, that didn't work. You tried, you know, different relationships, that didn't work. So you said, all right, I'll try this God person, this God thing, this religion thing, this Jesus thing, and that worked wonders.
Yeah, sounds great.
that worked wonders. So now you're an author. Now you're a graduate. Now you're drug free. And, you know, obviously, you know, life has challenges of its own. Life throws curveballs. I always say that. But you know how to navigate those. You know how to do those things. And I just think that's important, because, you know, so many people shy away from that. And you know, I'm huge on faith. Whenever somebody asks me, like, how did I get here? You know, like, faith is huge to me. I believe there's more to life than just foster care and pain and suffering and things like that. On the flip side of that as well is, I think that we lose sight of human beings doing what they want to do, right? Somebody did those things to you, right? Yeah. A human did those to you. Somebody who consciously or subconsciously, or whatever the case may be, made a decision to do something, right? If I walk down the street and I slap somebody randomly, you know, they can't really say, oh God, why did you let that happen? Like, I did that. You know, human beings have this will to do things, like to get up and go to work, to drink water when they're hungry, so we have the ability to do things. It's not like God allows these things to happen. It's just human beings do these things. And I think that you have found something that has really put a stamp on your heart and your mind. It has allowed you to forgive. It has allowed you to move forward. It has allowed you to heal and help other people. And, you know, many people turn away, and that's fine. You know, like, to each their own. Many people turn away. They get mad at, you know, at God and things like that. And they live their own life, and they're successful foster youth who don't believe at all. And they're doing big things as well, you know, but I enjoy hearing the fact that you've tried all these things, for lack of better words, religiously. Like, you tried alcohol religiously, you tried addiction religiously, you jumped around in all these relationships religiously, you threw your hands up and said, I don't care, religiously. You know, you've had several attempts on your own life, and now here you're like, all right, this is my last hope. You spoke about hope. This is my last hope. I'm going to trust in this book and in this person that people are talking about. And then boom, couple years later, you're speaking. A couple years later, you're healthy. A couple of years later, you're making it work. So you are a true testament of what it means to just really let go. And when you're at the bottom, and you're on the low, right? You're at the bottom of the bottom with nowhere else to go. You looked up, and now you are Lucy Liz Baker, the author, the motivational speaker, the entrepreneur. And I think that's incredible. I think that's absolutely incredible. So looking forward and, I guess fostering the future, what message of hope and perseverance would you give to current foster youth who might be watching this show or facing challenges or wondering if they too can achieve success like you have? How can they use their story and the resources you have provided as an inspiration to build a bright future? I know that was a mouthful of a question, but I guess that's a two-parter. So let me just break it down. Like, what's your message of hope and perseverance would you give current foster youth that are watching this show right now?
Growing up in the foster care system is extremely hard. Moving from many different homes at once leads a lot of youth to feel extremely unwanted and extremely unloved and uncared for. But my message is really just to assure them that they are loved, and broken people do broken things. And sometimes people don't know how to love because they haven't experienced what love actually is, because they're seeking love in all these different things. But if we have one love and we commit to that love, it's going to have a ripple effect on all the rest of the people in our life. And it starts within ourselves, within us. And I'm also a firm believer that every single thing that we've experienced in this life is purposeful and intentional. Not just, it's not for us. It's not personal. It's to pour out into others that need it. And I remember you saying this to me as I was trying to navigate if I wanted to go into this deep healing path, or if I just wanted to kind of run away and try to pursue something else. But deep in my heart, there was just this burning that I couldn't silence. And you shared with me that my story was never meant for me. And at first I was kind of like, wait a minute. I don't know if I like this message, but I'm going to sit with it. Then I reflected and I was like, that is so real. And it's so true. Like, I see now that every single thing that I've experienced is so that I can reach people who have also experienced the same and say, hey, I made it. I'm still alive. At least still alive. But not only am I alive, I'm also thriving in this career that I thoroughly enjoy and love and pour my heart and soul into. And I also am an author. Like, there's so much more than even I've dreamt of for myself that's happened. So if I can make it, so can you. So speaking hope into their lives by saying, I am alive. Simply starting there. Yeah.
That is awesome. Man, your story is heavy. I'm not going to lie, man. And I sit here and I reflect. I got an 8-year-old, man. I got an 8-year-old, and, I love him. And I just, I get, something happens to me if he comes home with a scrape on his leg. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just, like he's my son. Like, he's my, that's my guy, and I love him with every fiber of my being. And I think about your story at 10 and all the things that you endured, and my heart breaks for you, man. And it does. Like, I think about that and I go, I'm angry. There's a little bit of anger in me. There's a little bit of sadness. But then I look at you 10, 15 years later and look at you. Wow. Right? Wow. Like, wow. Yeah, that's all you can say. And I tell people this all the time, especially foster youth. I say, look, you have every excuse to fail. Luce, you had every excuse to fail and no one would bat an eye. If you were still out in the streets, if you were still doing drugs, or maybe you weren't here today, no one would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Like that's so random. No, because they would look at your story and go, dude, what do you expect? Or you do something with your life. You do something with this pain. You climb out of the mud. You fix yourself. You crawl out. You fight through it. You crawl through it. You struggle through it. You cry through it. You burden through it, and you keep moving forward, inch by inch, millimeter by millimeter, foot by foot, until you start to gather your strength back, until life starts to flow through you again, until your blood starts to run warm once again. And then you look back, finally, right? You're finally on your feet. You look back and go, wow, I went through all that and I'm still standing. You, my friend, are you are the definition of resilience. I am extremely, extremely proud of you. If you're watching this, and you're not like you don't feel like you can run through a brick wall, you got to get your ears checked, man. You got to get your ears checked. Like, Lucy, you are a beacon. You are a beacon, because there's just focus on gender. There's a million, and I mean that by all standards of the phrase. There are a million little girls who are going through what you went through. And some of them aren't going to make it. And I'm hoping that if this video is shared, I'm hoping that somebody that's watching this right now rips that suicide note up, puts the bottle down, throws the drugs away, turns to somebody and asks for help. I'm hoping that that comes from this show today. Somebody watches a clip somewhere down the line where they're in a dark place and they hear Lucy Liz Baker, or they're walking down the street and they visit their local library just to get some peace and quiet, and Lucy's teddy bear pops up in their lap and they're inspired by it to do the things that you have done with your life. This is no small feat, and I really want you to understand that. I really want you to hear what I'm saying. What you have accomplished in these last few years is nothing short of incredible, 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 incredible. And if you continue to do the same things that you have done to get to this point now, 10 years from now, Lucy Liz Baker is going to be a household name. It needs to be.
Yeah. It will. It will. Not just for me and my family, but I'm hoping women and children, families like that need it. Not just my family. I hope to have a home for even youth. I think just youth. I don't even know about family, but for youth, for sure. Yeah. Because it's needed. It's so needed. I mean, just last week, I was still living in a group home for aged out foster youth. Now, I mean, I'm like walking on water. And it's been a very interesting and fun journey, but we need homes for youth that really sow in longevity and consistency and stability for success, not just letting our youth slip through the cracks and hide and just hide in their fear and their circumstances, because that's just so common.
It really is. It really is.
It's so common.
I think you're going to blaze a trail. So, Luce, man, wow. What a great episode. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being transparent and sharing such a raw, deep, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching story of yours, but coming out of the fire just as pure as gold. You know, you're going to impact a lot of lives. I know you have impacted mine. I hope that the people watching have felt the same. Wow. I'm like, I'm at a loss for words, but I'm like, I'm really, I'm really happy. And I'm really just thinking in my head, you know, how important you are to society and the bravery it takes to be as vulnerable as you have been tonight. So if you are watching today's episode and you are inspired by Lucy, you can follow her, Lucy Liz Baker. That's her Instagram. You can, you have a website?
It's not complete yet.
It's not complete, but she's working on it. She's working on it. So just keep Lucy Liz Baker on Instagram for now. And your book is coming out very soon. If you would love to support her and you for Foster Care Awareness Month, let's just put it that way. Here you have a young lady who's trying to make an impact in the world. She's lived an amazing, outstanding, phenomenal story, which is still going. She's still adding chapters to her book, and you would love to support her. Buy a book. Buy a book, whether for you, for a friend, read it to your children. If you know somebody in foster care that may experience or have experience like Lucy has, buy her book. Buy her book. Lucy's Teddy Bear. The link is in her bio, or excuse me, the link is in her on her Instagram, in her bio. You scroll down, you'll see it on pre-sale. Buy her book. Support her, what she's doing, and just all the stuff that she's been through. What a way to say thank you. And not only that, she's a speaker now. She's going around, she's talking to young ladies, she's in the schools, she's talking to women's retreats, women's ministries about her story, about her battle with abuse and how to overcome that, forgiveness, what that means. She has a Substack where you can read her poetry. She has a ton of things that you can do to support her. Lucy Liz Baker, inspirational or motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, author, all that good stuff. I'm going to look into the chat, Lucy, see if there's any questions. And while I'm doing that, any last words, any last messages that you want to send to the people out in digital social media land?
Yes, there is a quote. It's a famous quote, and it really stuck with me. It says, if people can hate for no reason, then we can also love for no reason. So I want every one of you to know, I love you. You are loved. You are enough. And I just appreciate you for being here and being willing to open up your heart and listen to this. So thank you so much. So much.
That is awesome. Lucy, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Dee Hankins Show, Foster the Future. As always, y'all, I am your host, Dee Hankins. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you were inspired. I hope something was said that touched you, that made you think. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit me up. Slide in the DMs, hit up Lucy, talk to her. She's got some wisdom for you. Once again, my name is Dee Hankins. Thank y'all so much. Please remember, life throws curveballs, but even curveballs can be hit for home runs. Lucy, thank you so much.